Sherry Tunney for the Marine Canvas Training Institute. Today we will demonstrate the making of specialty items to include U-shaped zippers, zipper pockets, hidden zippers, and our easily adjustable tie-down straps. We'll show you how to lay out the patterns to avoid waste and how to cut and sew them together quickly. Our goal, as always, is to demonstrate how to increase your profits through the efficient use of materials and labor, while at the same time turning out top-quality marine products. Let's meet Don Wedge, president of the Marine Canvas Training Institute. Hi, Don.
Hi, Sherry.
Don, even though your students may master the skills that have made you a leader in the canvas fabrication industry, just how important is the material they use?
Well, Sherry, the material that we use can make the difference of whether we can turn out a product that we're proud of and a product that our customers have come to expect for quality.
So where do you go to get this top quality material that you so faithfully use?
Sherry, we use most of our materials from Unitex, which is a national supplier of Sunbrella and Gore-Tex thread. The reason we use Unitex is because they're very competitive on their pricing and they give us good service.
Now, what about Sunbrella and Gore-Tex sewing thread?
All right, Sunbrella is manufactured by Glenraven Mills in North Carolina. It's a material that has a 5-year guarantee. It has a full color line so that we can match our customers' needs with colors. And we also use Gore-Tex thread because it's the only thread I know of that's guaranteed for the life of the product.
So it's safe to say that by utilizing Sunbrella material, Gore-Tex sewing thread, along with the services of Unitex, you're pretty much guaranteed a top quality product.
That's right, Sherry. Now let's show them how to do it.
Okay.
Hello. This is what we call our specialty tape, and some of the things that we're going to show you on this is how to put in a U-shaped zipper, which we call a smile, that goes into a curtain to let it open up for ventilation. We're also going to show you how to make a boot for a top, and we're going to show you how to make the panels for a hidden zipper if you want to put it on the end of a curtain to have your zippers totally hidden from the inside and the outside, which is what some of the people on the larger yachts expect. Now, we've pre-prepared a little bit. In a previous tape, we showed you how to make a curtain for an enclosure. And just for purposes of you being able to see what we are talking about, we have drawn a U-shaped zipper on the curtain here. Now, this is on the outside of the curtain. We drew this with a China marker, okay? This happens to be the size that we decided we wanted to have. Now, we've prepared a curtain a little bit ahead of time, so we had to show you how we drew it on the outside to determine the size that the smile is going to be. Now, normally what we do when we're doing a smile on a curtain is we put the smile into the curtain before we finish it. This way we can have flat binding and binding on the edges of the smile. Pardon me. And the reason that we do that way is we create material where there is no material when we cut the zipper open. This eliminates a lot of the leaks because when you get a blinding rainstorm on a set of curtains and it hits these curtains, unless you have a little extra material, you're going to have water running in through the zipper, and we don't want that. So this is why we bind it with around the edge. Now what we have here, and we cheated a little bit, we have the same mark which is now covered up a little bit by the flat binding. Becky's already sewed the outer piece of flat binding outside of the mark. And the binding that we're talking about here, in this particular case, and this is something that we have chosen to do, we used a 3/4 inch bias cut acrylic binding. Why do we use that particular item? Most of the time, unless the customer specifies different, we'll make our smiles with white binding and white zippers so that that's the least obvious thing that we can put in that curtain. Why do we use bias binding? Because bias binding will stretch and shrink on the inner and the outer edges, and show them what we're talking about, where the edges are, Beck. The inner edge has to shrink a little bit as it goes around the curve. The outer edge has to stretch a little bit as it goes around the curve in order to have it lay down nice and flat. Now Becky's already sewed this one on, and this was sewed on the outside of the mark, which is where the cut is going to be for the smile zipper. Now she's going to sew the piece on the inner edge of that mark. Now she happens to have done this long enough that she can lay the zipper down, she can lay the binding down flat and sew it on and not fight with it and not stretch it and not shrink it too much. Now if you have a problem doing that, there is 1/4 inch seam tape made that you can put on the glass, and you can stick the binding down before you sew it, so that when you get all done, you don't have the little puckers, because we don't believe in having darts in our binding. So while Becky's sewing that other piece on, which is on the other side of where the center of the zipper is going to be, let me talk a little bit about zippers. Not too long ago, they came out with a new style of zipper that can be used for smiles, which works a lot better for the customer. We used to use the standard YKK zipper with the teeth on it. Then they came out with a coil zipper. It's a number 10 coil zipper. And the difference is like this. This is what the coil looks like, and this is what 1/2 of the teeth look like. Now the reason we use the coil, again, is it'll sew down flatter and it works easier for the customer. And if you don't get these smiles to work easy, the customers are going to tear them up for you. There's a couple of things about this zipper that you have to understand. If you look at it real close, on one side, the tape goes clear to the joint, and it looks totally flat. And on the other side, the teeth are showing. Consequently, the slider that works with this is made to fit it so that the teeth are on the outside or the top side. And if you look at this slider, you'll notice that it on the back, on the side of it, it has one side has a lip that's larger than the other one. So make sure when you put your zipper on the curtain that you have the coil facing up. Otherwise, that slider is not going to go on correctly. Consequently, the zipper is not going to work right. So what I'm saying is this: when Becky sews this zipper on the smile, she's going to sew it on with the coil up so that the slider can be up, as I have it held right here. Okay, now Becky has the flat binding sewed on around both sides of the area that she wants this smile to cover.
Wait a minute, I want to finish this for you so that you can see it, because if you look, the inner edge is laid flat and this edge has a wave to it, and that's because it's going around a curve. And I want to show you how to work that in as you're sewing, because you're all going to sit down and do it and you're going to say, well, it's all bumpy, how do I do this? So this is how you come around from, I'm starting down at the center point of the U-zipper, and I'm going to go from here up to here. And you can see how I just work it in with my fingers. And it's laying flat. It'll lay flat as I sew it down. You can look behind the needle and you can see that it's all laying flat. All I'm doing is holding it in front of the needle and holding it in place as the needle gets to it.
Actually, what she's teaching you here is how to shrink zipper also, because when you put the zipper down, you have to know how to stretch one side and shrink the other side.
This is what the two pieces look like when they're sewed side by side, laying flat.
All right, now you have to notice that this is the outside of the curtain. The flat binding is put on the outside of the curtain so that the zipper can be put on the inside of the curtain so that the customer can get a hold of the slider, because he's not going outside to slide it. Now, you're going to cut it or you're going to sew it on first, Beck?
Well, I've got to bind this edge.
Well, either way.
No, I can do it the other way.
Let's show them how to sew the zipper on first, then bind it, because some people won't be able to handle it like you do. The next thing that we're going to do is sew the zipper on And this is the end, show them it's the inside of the curtain.
This is the inside because all of our writing, if you notice the writing down here, you can't read it, so that indicates we're on the inside of the curtain. Now this is the only part that I tape down because you're going to see how I have to work in the fullness of the zipper. What I have here in front of me is 1/4-inch seam tape. I'm running the 1/4-inch seam tape right along the edge of this zipper, sticking it down. Do the same thing down the other edge of the zipper tape also.
Is everybody noticing how good I am at holding this zipper down?
Okay, then you take the zipper, I'll fold this in half so you can see as I do it. I'm going to pull off this half of the seam tape. I'm going to pull off a little bit, turn it over, leave some sticking off the top of the edge because you're going to need something to grab to slide that slider on. And what I'm doing is taking this edge of the zipper tape and I'm going to line it up with this edge of the binding that I've sewn down. I'm going to just pull it off a little bit at a time and press it into place.
And what you'll notice is the way she's rubbing this down has a tendency to stretch that zipper tape just a little bit so that she doesn't have quite as much to shrink on the inner circle, which has got to be shrunk down. Because in order to keep this tape on this zipper laying flat, you have to stretch the outside just a little bit and shrink the inside a little bit.
Cutting this edge long again also, because if you slide on double slides, then you have something at each end to grab. Before I sew that down, I'm going to go ahead and take the other side of the tape off, just a little bit at a time, just like I did. And this tape, this edge of the tape here, goes along this edge of the inner binding. Now what you do, the best way to work in all this fullness all the way around is take your fingers, like I've got them here, and just lay it down like this and press it into place. And you can see how I'm working out all those little bubbles. Because what you want when you get done sewing is you want to have a nice flat seam around here. You don't want to have one part of the binding overlapping the other, such as like that. You just got to work it all the way around. It's kind of time consuming, but it makes for a nicer looking job when you get all done. And you can, if you make a mistake with it, you can pick it up and pull it and readjust it just like I'm doing.
While she's shrinking that in, I'll talk about the sliders that go with this tape. I'm sorry, with this zipper just a little bit. These are a stainless steel slider so that you don't have to worry about them corroding. But they do have a different shape to them than what you're used to seeing. So make sure you study that before you start just putting a smile in. Because if you get it in backwards, it doesn't work.
So you can see ahead of time what it's all going to look like when it's all stuck and sewn in place. Okay. I'm going to fold this so that I can get it up near the machine, and what I'm going to do first is sew right along this outside edge using my foot as a guide. If you look at the foot, you've got 2 feet here, an outside foot and an inside foot. This edge of the foot is what I'm going to let run along this edge of the material.
The explanation of why that has to be sewed with that dimension from the edge of the tape on the zipper is this. If you sew too close to the zipper teeth, then you can't get this slider on there. And if you do get it on, it's going to force it open, and then it's going to make it leak. These U-shaped zippers, we're trying to be nice today, we're calling them U-shaped. We call them smiles. And if you want to have fun with your customer, and we try to have fun with our customers so that they don't worry so much about the price that we're trying to charge them, if they're going to buy smiles in their curtains, what I say to them, sir, each one of these smiles is going to cost you $75. Or if you want frowns, they're $85. And he says, what you talking about? I said, well, you know, it costs more to frown than it does to smile, right? And I say that because I get picked on so much because I don't smile the way I'm supposed to. And believe it or not, I had a customer that did pay me $85 for a frown. I didn't bother to tell him the difference. I just took his money, and he was happy, and I was happy.
Okay, after the outside edge is sewn down, you come back and do the inside of the edge of the zipper the same way, running that other side of the inner foot, the outside of the inner foot along the outside edge of the zipper tape. Now if you'll watch as I come around here, you can see that all these little wrinkles that are sticking up will all flatten out as the foot goes over it.
The other thing that I guess we didn't mention when we started out, so I'll bring it up now, is normally if we're going to put smiles in a curtain, we know ahead of time, we go ahead and put the smile in the curtain before we put the facings on and before we put the binding on, so that we can cover up the ends of these zippers across the top with our flat binding. Plus you have less bulk to handle in order to get this smile put in, because you get into a big curtain that's 4 foot wide and maybe 5 foot high, you got a lot of bulk to put through the machine here. All right, now the next step is to cut this apart and take it apart and bind it. Now before you cut it apart, stop and think about what you have to do. You have to put it back together exactly the way it came apart. So up here at the edge of the curtain, Becky is going to take a pencil and put a dot on each side of the teeth at the edge of the curtain, so that when she has to put this thing back together, she'll get those dots to match up exactly. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to end up with the smile cocked off into the curtain, and it's not only going to look weird, it's not going to fit the boat the way it's supposed to. The next thing is take and open your zipper up. Just take your finger and run it right down around those teeth. And open it up. And cut the curtain apart right down the center where the teeth are. What you're doing is cutting right down between those two pieces of binding. Now, a lot of people don't do what we do here. They don't put the extra binding on. A lot of people just cut it and leave it. There's nothing wrong with that. Everything in life breaks down to the dollar bill, so it depends on how much you're charging for the smile. One of the reasons that we developed the way of binding this edge was two things. One, it's too hard to do it by hand, and it doesn't look neat. So this way you can do it with the folder that we have. The other thing is, you'll notice when we put it back together, this binding that's being put on the edge is going to make the top part of the smile larger than the bottom part so that it will overlap and then it won't leak when it rains against it. You'll also find that the way that she sewed the zipper down leaves room for her to peel the zipper back and run it through the folder. Now we would not be using grape-colored binding on this, we'd be using white. But for purposes of education and the contrast, we're just going to use the grape-colored binding. Smiles are one of the easy things to sell on a bimini top enclosure. The reason being the curtains are usually so big and they're made out of 40 mil glass that for the customer to get ventilation up on the fly bridge, they're not going to unzip or unsnap their curtains and take them off. And you don't want them unsnapping them and rolling them up because it puts too much weight on the top. So this makes it easy for the customer to unzip it, roll it up, and get the ventilation in the boat. And folks, part of the reason we were put on this earth was to make products that make it easy for the customer to go out on his boat and have a good time. So the easier you make it for him, the better, the happier he's going to be, and the more money you're going to make. All right, now comes the fun part of laying the two parts back together, matching the dots up, and getting it started. And what we found is this. The reason she left that zipper hanging out on the top edge, she can cut one side off flush with the glass, and it leaves a tab sticking out on the other side for her to get a hold of with her fingers to get it started. And be kind of careful when you cut this coil type zipper because it reacts a little bit different than it does with the teeth. So cut it real clean. She's going to cut one side off right flush with the glass. Put the slider on, and the slider only goes on one way as I showed you before. So look at the slider so that you know how it has to go on to those teeth. The reason she's got a little problem with this is the fact that when you're trying to do this for a video camera, you got to hold it out where everybody can see what you're doing. When you're just worrying about yourself, you get it up in front of your belly and you bend over the table and you lay your belly down on it. Then you can hold it and do what you have to do. But the director said we got to keep this out where you guys can see it, and they're sick of looking at my big belly anyhow. So. And I hear some laughing in the background, which I wish you wouldn't do because it upsets me. And when it all falls apart like it just did, you come over here on this side.
She had single sliders.
Hmm?
Wish I had a single slider. This is not. Try it this way.
Why don't we just stop right here and go get a single slider? We goofed. We picked up a double handle slider, and we're going to go get a single slider and put it on.
There isn't any, I don't think.
Going to keep rolling? Okay. Dawn, could you get me a single hand slider? Dawn, never mind. I think she just got it. See, folks, we goof things up too. But I read Becky's mind, and she said a couple bad words, and that thing went on there because she don't want to be embarrassed. Now, Becky, if you'll trim that off on the top. Can you get it started again? You got it learned now? Pull it off, cut that off, and show them how to restart it so that it's started on both ends so that you can weld it together so that you don't have to sew a stop over it.
Let's see. Try it again.
She's sitting here trying to think of that bad word she used last time to get that cotton picker to go. See, she thought of the word, she broke out in a cold sweat, and it all worked. Now she's going to cut the zipper off. She's going to cut the teeth down about 1 inch on both sides of the teeth and cut them off. Why is she going to do that? Because again, I told you up front that we put the smile zippers in first, then we put the facings on. We don't want to have to sew over those teeth because it gets very bulky and it's a great way to break a needle. So she's cut the teeth away for about 1 inch down, and now she's going to take the hot knife and weld the teeth together for another 1 inch so that this smile can't possibly come apart. Be careful when you're welding these teeth. Watch them. The minute they start to shine, quit. Because if you keep going, they're going to flare up, they're going to turn brown and get ugly looking. But what this does is creates a stop on both ends of the zipper. And we have kind of gone to putting just one slider on anymore because we used to put 2 on. Problem with that was the customer always brought it down to the center and left it where Becky's got it laying now. Where now Becky's showing them how you can open it and close it and always have the zipper up at the top end of the smile. There it is with the zipper closed with the slider up at the top end out of the way so it's not obvious to the customer. Now show them how it opens up. And again, it's going to be open and the zipper, the slider is out of the way. Now we're going to turn it over and show you why we bound it after we flat bound it. You'll notice here that after you put it on the boat and you get it settled down one time, this smile is overlapping, the top lip is overlapping the bottom lip, which will keep the water from running in the boat. And folks, that's all there is to putting a smile in a curtain. Are you smiling, Becky? This is another specialty item that we're putting on our specialty tape. Everybody likes to know how to make a boot for a top to store it and do it in a hurry because it's something you can make a lot of money on if you don't spend 4 hours making the thing, and it doesn't require that. Here's the formula that it takes to cut out a piece of material that'll cover the average top. What we do is take the overall width of the framework. And I'm just going to use an example here. Let's say that we have a framework that's 54 inches wide and we have 3 frames. So we take 54 inches plus 2 inches per frame. That means 6 more. That's 61 plus 1 inch for the seam allowance. So again, take the width of the frame plus 2 inches per frame plus 1 inch seam allowance. So what we would do is cut a piece of material that's 61 inches long by 36 inches wide. And I've already done that because I had to cheat a little bit. And I brought it over here and I folded the 36-inch piece in half. It's laying down here on the table so that it's now 18 by 61. Now how do I get the shape of that boot so that it looks like the top and it fits on the top? We added 7 inches to the overall width of the top using our 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. So I came back from the end of this material and I put a mark at 7 inches. I measured down from the folded area 12 inches because that gives me a 24-inch circumference, which will cover the average top. Now we go back to my famous bent tent pole, which we discussed in the original tapes where we were teaching you how to design frames and a measuring device, which is, this is our bent tent pole. Same thing that we have on the frame. So we're going to lay it up here on this piece of material, clear to the outer end and to where the leg length touches the fold up here at the top edge. We're going to lay it down here and just draw a line right around the outer edge of it, and that gives us the configuration of our framework on the outer edge. What we do down here where I put this mark 7 inches from the end and 12 inches down from the fold is take the tent pole and lay it up to those two marks so that the curved area is touching those two marks, and draw around that, and it gives us the curvature for the bottom edge of the boot. Now, boots are not real critical on how they're cut, but I came up here in the middle of the section that I cut out for the boot, and I put another mark here at 12 inches. If you need it, put a few more marks at 12 inches, because here's how we're going to cut it quick and dirty. Except that I forgot my shears, Becky, so I got to borrow yours. Come over here and cut this end right up along the mark. Come down here and cut. We're cutting both pieces at once, folks. So just hold it down and cut right up around these marks. Now, rather than to go through all the gyrations that I went through before to get the other end the same way, the quick and easy way is to bring it down here and fold it in half. Crease it down. Now, if you want to draw around this, be my guest. It just takes a whole bunch of time that you don't need to use up. So just use that as the pattern and cut right down alongside this cut. And you're making a mirror image of the other end. Now, because we run this through the folder and bind the edges, rather than to have go around this square corner here, and we want to streamline it a little bit, so I just take this square corner and cut it off and round it up. And that's all there is to cutting out the boot for a convertible top or a bimini top. And when I unfold the whole thing, here's what it's going to look like. There's what it looks like unfolded, okay? Now I'm going to fold it back up and show you how simple it is to sew this thing up. I'm going to fold it back up. And because Becky is a better looking and a better seamstress than I am, I don't know if she's a better seamstress, but she's a whole lot better looking than I am. So what she's going to do is come over here and she's going to start with a bar tack at this point and sew down around this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, finish with a bar tack and do the same on the other end, and then bind the raw edges. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Becky to sew.
Doesn't matter whether you start here and come up this way or start here and go down, just whatever you happen to pick up first. Put your edges together and 1/2 inch seam allowance again. You go all the way around.
Just go right off the end there. What she's going to do is sew these two ends. Some people like to turn it over and face up and top sew it. We don't bother with it. It doesn't serve any great purpose. Now what she's going to do is open it up and bind it all the way around the remaining edges that are there. And it's just one continuous piece of binding all the way around. For all of you that are brand new in the business, this boot for the top is what I use as my negotiating factor when I'm selling the job. Because we do try to charge top dollar for all of our work, because we do try to put out the best work that we're capable of doing. And we're very proud of it. So normally when I figure a top, whether it be a bimini top or a convertible top, usually, and again, I'm not setting prices, I'm just giving you ideas, okay? I'll charge $65 on my estimate for the boot. And when I get the total price figured out and I hand the customer the contract to sign and he looks at that price, usually he faints dead away. And he falls down. And I just stand there calmly, and when he does wake up and his eyes come back into focus, I say, okay, sir, now here's the total price, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do today. This boot that I charged you $65 for, I'm going to give you. Why do I give it to him? Because I figured it out a long time ago that we really have got about 20 bucks tied up in this boot. So it's just one of the little ways that we use to sell our product and get top dollar for everything else. The other theory that I work on, folks, is this, that when you're selling your product, throw the top price out. If the customer doesn't squeal a little bit, if he buys too quick, you know that you're too low priced. When Becky gets this binding on, which she's got just about done, she's going to come in and start sewing the zipper on, and she'll cut the zipper to the length that she needs as she sews it on. And again, don't get your zipper started clear down at that seam now. This is going to be too long, Beck. You're starting up on the inside of where the frames would be if they were in the boot. Yes, you did. Folks, that was a private joke between the people that are producing this product and myself. Because of my last crazy little joke, they want to raise the price now. While Becky's sewing this zipper on across here, you notice she started with the start of the zipper. When she gets to the identical place on the other side of the boot, she's going to cut both halves of the zipper off at the same time and transfer the stop to the other side of the boot so that it will come out symmetrical on both sides. And in this particular case, when she cuts it off, she's going to go ahead and sew it on, and then we'll come back later with the hot knife and weld the tooth into the zipper as I've shown you on previous tapes, so that we have a nice, neat, factory-looking stop. Now they're holding a sign up that says no fainting or we'll give you the boot. I don't know. I guess they're going to throw me out of this. Everybody's getting sick of me. Here's where she's transferring the stop on the zipper to the other side of the boot so that she can sew it on. She's transferring the start so that they come out at the same place. Why does this have to be done? So that when they zip it together, you don't have a big wrinkle going down through the boot.
Make sure after you cut off the zipper like I just did that you put the slider back on, because if you don't and you go ahead and weld the teeth into the other end, you're going to wind up with welded zipper ends and no slider. So the first thing you do after you cut it off is slide it back on and up to the far end where it will stop. All I'm going to do is open it up, find the mark that I made as my zipper start, and lay the zipper to the edge just like it was done on this edge with the teeth off of the edge. And also make sure that you have the same end matching starting. You don't want to have the start at one end and the stop at the same end so that you can't zip them together. I've done that.
Hope you all noticed that when we started this project, it was about 10 minutes ago, and I've had people come down here and tell me that they'll spend 45 minutes to an hour making a boot for a top, and that's just wasting a whole lot of time and effort. So I think we've shown you a quick way to make a boot for a top.
Make sure that when you start a zip around like I did, that you come up a few inches, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches, come down, hold the other end where it's supposed to stop at the mark that we had originally put, hold it there, and walk your hands back like this, because you don't want to wind up with too much or too little zipper when you get down here. If you do that every so often, you'll wind up with it coming on its mark when you get to the end. Like here, I sewed up to my hand, which was where I had it held, come back, hold it in place, walk your fingers around. If it looks like it's going to come to the end, then you can let go with this hand, come back up and hold everything in place and sew to your hand again. When you get there, then stop again. This should be the last time. I'm holding it at the end, I'm holding it in the radius, laying it down and sewing it. If everything is on, you should wind up with the teeth at your mark at the end. Bar tack it, cut your threads. The only thing left to do on the boot is make sure you go back and put the welded ends in on your teeth. If you don't, customer goes to zip it up, slider comes ripping off the other end, and then he has no way to stop the zipper. I've done that too. Got all the way to the job and found out that I didn't have a welded zipper. So once again, if you don't remember how we did the welded zipper, cut off one tooth from a zipper that was a cut off, like when we cut this off. Take the small piece, spread the last 2 teeth so that you can insert it like this. Take the hot knife, cut off the little tabs.
Blow on it. Y'all notice how that little tab of Gore-Tex thread that was sticking up there would not burn? That again is why Gore-Tex thread is guaranteed for the life of the product.
Turn your boot right side out, and it's ready to go.
We gonna turn it and zip it back or not?
Yeah, I
Shall
can
we?
zip it. Back here. That's the finished boot.
And that's the easy way to do it, folks. Hello. The next item on our specialty tape is this. On some curtains, on enclosures, the customers like to have the zippers hidden on the inside and the outside of their curtains. And I'm talking about the vertical zippers that connect one curtain to another. You usually only find this on the larger yachts, and most of the time it'll be done with Weblon or something like that. But we're going to show you how to do it with Sunbrella, because it's a little different ball game with the Sunbrella in the way that you handle it. The procedure and the items are no different. In order to make a panel to have the zipper completely hidden from the inside and the outside of the boat is done this way. And I've got one started so that you can see what we're going to do. But what we did and what it requires is this. You have to predetermine ahead of time how long the vertical zippers are going to be on each curtain. Then you cut panels that are somewhat longer than that. In other words, a good instance is, let's assume that you wanted to have a 60-inch curtain. We're going to do it in miniature, but a 60-inch zipper, we would cut a panel that was 60 inches long by 7 inches wide for each side of that zipper. In other words, it takes 2 panels to make the completely hidden zipper. If you cut it 7 inches wide, and you can see the one I have laying here on the table, we're going to put a 24-inch zipper in this. So we cut it 30 inches long, and we put a mark in 2.5 inches from each edge. Now what Becky is going to do in order to make one end finished so that we don't have to fool with it later, she's going to take one end to the other and turn a 1/2 inch under. Then she's going to turn it into the first mark and sew down the folded edge. This gives a nice sharp edge for the zipper. This is going to be the top end of that zipper panel. I want you to all notice how she's holding this material. Don't be pulling and tugging on it, because if you do, it's going to end up right up in a great big circle because you're going to stretch it. What she's doing here is turning it and coming right back up the other side, sewing down the folded edge that's folded on that mark. Here she's starting at the bottom end of that panel. Now, in the interest of time, we already did one panel ahead so that you wouldn't have to watch her sew 2 panels, because you all know how to do it now. So here's what the 2 panels look like after they're sewed up. Now, the reason that they look like this is we're going to bury a zipper in each one. Now, there's 2 different ways of putting zippers in. This particular one, we're going to start the zipper 1 inch down. I'm sorry, Becky, put that up where they can see it. We're going to start the zipper 1 inch down from the finish end. Watch how she's folding this together. The 2 folded edges that were pre-sewed are laid tight together, and then she's going to lay the zipper in between them, starting 1 inch down from the top end. And there's going to take a little bit of practice, because these teeth have to stay flush with that folded edge. And she's going to sew right down along, and you have to, the practice part of this is to make sure that you don't sew so close to the teeth that you force the zipper out of that folded area. What you're doing is you're sewing about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of that tape, but you don't even know it because you can't see it. So you have to do it by being familiar with the zipper and holding it the way she's holding it now, by holding the teeth in flush with the edge. And what we do is sew clear to the bottom of this panel. because this panel will be cut off later when it's put on the curtain and bound. That's why we finished the top end before we started, and then we're going to bind the bottom edge when we get it on the curtain. Go clear at the bottom, Beck. Great. Then take the other half of that same zipper and put it in the other panel. This is why if you're going to do hidden zippers on an enclosure on a fly bridge, this can add to the price like you wouldn't believe, because if you stop and figure this, let's say that you're putting a 19 curtain enclosure on a bridge like one that we do about every 2 years. A 19 curtain enclosure requires 20 vertical zippers, and 20 vertical zippers requires 40 of these panels made up and the zippers put into them before you ever start putting them on the curtains. So if you have to bid a job like that, sit down, think about it before you just throw a price at the customer, because it takes a lot of labor. All right, now we can zip it together and show everybody what it looks like with the zipper zipped, so it'll be hidden from the inside and the outside. Then we'll show you how to put it on a curtain. That's what your panel looks like before you put it on the curtain, so that the zipper will be hidden from the inside and the outside. All right, now the next step to put this on a curtain is this. Take one panel or the other, or leave them zipped together, Becky, because we're just going to do one half of it because people can learn that. Take and put seam tape on one edge or the other of this raw edge that's sticking out.
Here.
The reason we're putting the seam tape on was we're going to turn a 1/2 inch under so that we have a nice finished edge. And the seam tape holds it in place until you get it ready to sew onto the curtain. And look how nice and straight that panel is laying. If you don't handle this umbrella correctly, it'll go off in a curve. And where it happens is when you're sewing this folded edge down. So make sure you don't fight with it. Lay it down and sew it. Now take the tape off and turn a 1/2 inch under back. And what I have here is just a scrap of glass that we're going to stick this to, just to show you how you would attach it to the end of a curtain, and then it would be done the same on the rest of the curtains. Again, this seam tape doesn't stick to acrylic real easy, so that's why we got this old-fashioned wallpaper roller, and we roll it down. Helps hold it in place until we get it worked. Okay, what I have here is a scrap of glass just to represent a curtain, and it has been cut to fit the particular opening that it has to fit. Now what we did was put seam tape on the edge of that. The seam tape is exactly a 1/2 inch wide. So we're going to take the protective coating off and take the edge that she just folded under with seam tape on the panel and stick it on there. And this is representing the top end of the curtain where she's at now. And we're going to let it run to infinity because we'll cut it off to match the bottom edge of the curtain when we finish the bottom edge of the curtain. Now the reason we do it this way is this keeps the exact size of the curtain that we wanted to start with. Now we're going to turn it over and we're going to fold the remaining raw edge until it matches that folded edge and sew it down. All right, when she gets this sewed down, that completes how you put a completely hidden zipper on the end of a side curtain. And all this is repetition all the rest of the way around the belt. Then you would trim your curtains out to match on the top and the bottom and the other ends. Hold it up there. Hello. The next item on our specialty tape is how to make a zippered pocket on any product, and we have come to the conclusion that we make more money and less effort in putting our products on the boats if we do zippered pockets on everything. Consequently, we've raised our prices to accomplish that. And once we explain it to the customer, it's one of the easy sells in our job. So what we have here is our miniature convertible top that we made for you earlier, and we're just going to show you how to put a zipper in the aft pocket. We're only going to put 1/2 of the zipper in, but we're going to prepare the whole pocket ready to accept the zipper. Now what the rules are as far as preparing this pocket is, we're going to cut the pocket open 1.5 inches away from the sew down seam. And what Becky is doing is putting marks 1.5 inches away from that seam so that she can cut it open.
If you're wondering what this line is here, this is the center line of the pocket down the center of the top, because the zippers will be starting at the end of the pocket, which is over here, and they will be zipping to the center and stopping at the center. So if you have your center line, you have your automatic stop in place.
And let me explain why it takes 2 zippers on the aft or the end pocket as opposed to 1 zipper, which I know some of you are going to try to get away with. The end pockets, whether it be on a bimini top or a convertible top, have a lot of strain on them. And if you had a zipper start at one end and finish at the other end of the pocket, there's no way of holding that zipper shut. So on the end pockets of all biminis and all convertible tops, we have 2 zippers. One starts at one side and one at the other side. Now what she's done here is cut this pocket open 1.5 inches away from the sew down seam. Now she's going to cut another 1/2 inch of pocket out and throw it away. Why? We just don't like that 1/2 inch. But the other reason, and the big reason why, is that we used to try to sew the zippers on with the teeth hidden. And every time we tried to do that, we'd find that our pockets were rolling as they come up around that curved area. And one day, somebody in this shop decided they were not going to do that. They were going to have those zippers lay flat. They cut that 1/2 inch out and threw it away, put the zipper in, and they laid down perfectly flat. So she's cut it open, cut the 1/2 inch out and threw it away, and now she's going to bind both edges. Now the reason we do that our pockets in this procedure is that some people try to make the zippered pocket before they sew it to the product. We found that it takes about twice as long to do that, because when you do that, it takes a lot of work to get the length and the shape of the pocket set. We have it already set when we sew it down to the top, so now it can't change. The shape can't change and the length can't change. So all we have to do is cut it open, bind it, and sew the zipper in. And it's quick and easy. And like I said before, I think, but I'll repeat it, this is one of the easy sells to your customer. Why? Because if he wants to take the cover off of his framework in the event of a hurricane or in the winter weather up north, it's easy to get it on and off. And it's something that you can make an extra buck at. And that's why we were put on this earth, is to make money. Watch how she's putting this binding on. Remember, this is all bias cuts. No strain, no pain. Don't start pulling on that pocket because you're going to stretch it and it won't come back the way it started out. So you help the top go down through there. The machine will pull the material through, but you can't make it do it all because it's going to stretch it. When she gets the zipper on, you'll notice how nice and flat this pocket's going to lay.
Okay, I'm out of bobbin thread.
She ran out of bobbin again. You people never run out of bobbin. Man, we're so fast we get rid of them in a hurry. This is lesson number 18 on how to change a bobbin on an Adler sewing machine using Gore-Tex thread. For those of you that didn't buy the other tapes and you only bought this specialty tape, why did she spray the hook? She sprayed it with silicone because Gore-Tex thread, when you're working it real hard, has a tendency to have a little residue come off from it and build up on the hook. And when it builds up on the hook, it makes the machine start to skip. So we found that if we keep the machine nice and clean and we spray the hook every bobbin, we don't have any problem with the buildup of that residue.
Okay, what I've got here is the binding coming out of the folder, and you can see all this tail here. You've got to get this pulled back in, so I'm going to show you how to pull it back in. Slide the folder back into place. If you just take this hand and pull this way and take this and feed it, you can see that it's all coming through here, folded the way it is when it comes out. If I keep pulling and going like this, I can put it right back up onto where I stopped before and pick up sewing again.
And you all thought we had to break the binding in order to get it out to put a bobbin in, didn't you? No way. This is how you do it. Of course, you people that are putting it on by hand, you'd have had to do that. We do it with this fancy folder that we sell. It makes it easy for you. Now we're only going to put put the zipper in one half of the pocket, just because it's very repetitious and there's no point in it. But when you see this one put in on one side and how nice and flat it lays, there'll be no point in spending the time to show you the other side.
This is what the pocket looks like with both edges bound before the zipper goes in.
Show them the reference point that you use for the start, Becky, so that
All right, what I'm doing, I'm
people don't
not
get
starting
confused.
the zipper way out here on the edge. You can see if I start the zipper right here and lay this pocket up, you can see what's sticking off here. So if you take your zipper, slide it back until you don't see anything here, and this is what it looks like here. I'm putting a reference point of where the starts are. And what I'm going to do is sew it down up to this point, which is the stop point, which is the center of the top. Cut my zipper tape off and weld a tooth in the end.
Remember what she said, it's real important because you have to cut the zipper so that it's the same length on both sides. If you start trying to cheat and put one on and cut it and then the other one on and cut it, one will have so many teeth and the other one might have 2 or 3 more teeth, What that's going to do for you is throw some big old hairy wrinkles into that pocket, and your top is going to look just terrible. The idea is to get this pocket to lay back down after it's zipped together so that it looks exactly like it did before we cut it apart.
Come up to the stop. Here's the stop that we had that was the center of the top. If you line your scissors up with that, you can mark the tape, pull it away, and continue to cut it off. Take your slider off at this point so that you don't set it aside and move it. If you put it on, you can put it on by setting it on the edge, pulling your tapes apart just enough so that you can slide it on. You can push it right past. And your zipper slider is on and you don't lose it. Come up to the stop, bar tack, and then sew the other half on. Okay, make sure that you're starting at the center of your top, so you got to have the stop. This is the stop end. This is the starting end. Make sure that you have the right end when you lay it down to start. Slide your zipper tape underneath the binding so that it's butt up to the edge, so that it's at the stop. You can start to sew. Now just go a little ways. Now this is a short top to show it on, but if you had a long one, what you do, you'd have your fabric back here probably, but what you want to do is this stop has to be at our stop chalk line. So if you've got to stretch it or shrink it to get it in place, make sure that when you get to the ends meet. So do what you have to do to make that happen. If I hold this here, you can see what's created here. So that means some of this has to get shrunk into place to fit the zipper. And the way you shrink it, if you hold your tape like this, take this hand, which is on the fabric, and push it into the foot as you go a little bit. You see how it's humping up there? Just that little bit will shrink it in what you need to go. If you go a short ways, come back, test your ends, make sure they're meeting. In this case, it's short enough I can come up here and hold it, so I can let go of this hand, hold it down here, sew up to my hand and stop. Come back, check your ends again, make sure that they're on, hold it, and grab another area. Sew to your hand. When you get this far from the end, lay it down, and what you should have is the end of the zipper at the end of the stop. Make sure you do good bar tacks. Don't just do back and a little bit, because a lot of times, especially with the Gore-Tex thread, I've found that it tends to want to pull away. So I go back 3 or 4 times on my bar tacks. Trim your threads. Weld in your zipper stops. Again, holding the single tooth in one hand, separating the last 2 teeth, and popping it into between those 2 teeth. Do that on both halves. Cut off your tabs. Make sure you don't touch the material because you'll burn a hole in your material. Weld your teeth. I usually do one side here and go to the other side while that other one is cooling. Then I can take it and flip it around, because if you bring it back onto itself while it's still hot over here, it's going to stick to your material.
Let me tell you all another reason. This one I'm dead serious on. Make sure when you're welding these teeth in that you blow on it when you get all done. Because if you accidentally get the hot knife too hot and that tooth flares up, it will support flame. And one day I was being dumb and I got in a hurry and I welded a tooth in, and I flipped it out of my way and went on to sewing, and all of a sudden I look over and here's that tooth burning a hole in the front quarter of my brand new top. So don't get in that big a rush.
This is the finished zipper pocket.
And that, folks, is what it takes to make a zippered pocket. And I hope that on this specialty tape that we've put out, that we've showed you some of the extra ways that you can make extra money in your business and give the customer a better product. Thank you.
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, the people from Glen Raven Mills Incorporated, who manufacture Sunbrella, Unitex Incorporated, a nationwide distributor, and WL Gore & Associates, using creative technologies worldwide in the making of Gore-Tex sewing thread. Join us again when we show you how to increase your profits and save time and effort with the Marine Canvas Training Institute programs.
Sherry, you know you've done a fantastic job, but you know what?
What?
I'm sick of working. Let's go fishing.
Okay, Don, let's finish.